Red Bull's Silverstone upgrade has just become the most dangerous mystery in the paddock. Two secret parts have reportedly leaked. Mercedes is already watching, and the FIA could be pulled into a fight that may decide whether Red Bull has found genius or cross a line. But here's the twist. The leaked source does not publicly reveal what the two parts actually are. No drawings, no confirmed technical identity, no full protest document. And that makes this even more explosive, because in Formula One, when rivals start reacting before the full details are public, it usually means one thing: they think the advantage is real. Silverstone is the perfect place for this to erupt. It is fast, brutal, and honest. If Red Bull's new parts give them more stability, more efficiency, or more speed to the high-speed corners, Mercedes will see it immediately. And if Mercedes believes that performance comes from a gray area in the rules, they will not wait until the damage is done. Because in Formula One, a protest is not just paperwork. It is a weapon. It can slow a rival down. It can force the FIA to investigate. It can turn a secret upgrade into a public courtroom. And even if Red Bull proves everything is legal, the pressure alone can change the entire weekend. That is why this story is bigger than two pieces of carbon fiber. It is Red Bull versus Mercedes. Innovation versus suspicion. Silverstone speed versus FIA legality. And somewhere inside those two alleged secret parts, there may be an answer every team on the grid is desperate to know. Has Red Bull just found its next breakthrough, or has Mercedes caught the first sign of something the FIA cannot ignore? Subscribe to the channel. To understand why this leak matters, you have to understand what Silverstone does to a Formula One team before the race even begins. Silverstone is not just another circuit on the calendar. It is a truth machine. A car can look sharp somewhere else. It can hide behind a clever setup, a strong driver, or one good sector. But at Silverstone, those hiding places disappear. The corners are too fast. The loads are too heavy. The track asks too much on the floor, the tires, the suspension, the energy system, and the driver's confidence. That is why Red Bull bringing two alleged secret parts here is not a small detail. It is a statement. And it is exactly the kind of statement Mercedes cannot ignore. Because when a rival team finds performance at Silverstone, you do not have days to react. You may not even have hours. The first long run can reveal everything. The first high-speed sector can show whether the car has gained stability. The first clean lap can tell every engineer in the pit lane whether something has changed. And if Mercedes has already noticed enough to consider a protest, then the pressure is not random. It means they believe there is something worth questioning. That does not prove Red Bull has done anything illegal. The source does not confirm the identity of the two parts, and it does not provide the exact legal argument. That matters. In Formula One, guessing too early can turn a story into fantasy, but the absence of detail does not make the tension smaller. It makes it sharper, because everyone knows how these battles work. A team does not usually challenge a rival because a part looks interesting. Teams see interesting parts every weekend. They photograph them. They compare them. They ask their own engineers if the idea can be copied. A protest, or even the threat of one, belongs to a different category. It means a rival may believe the part is not only clever, it may be too clever. And that is where Formula One becomes dangerous. The rules are written in words. The cars are built in millimeters. Between those two worlds, teams search for opportunity. A sentence in the regulations might close one door, but leave a tiny window open somewhere else. And the best designers in the sport spend their lives finding those windows. That is innovation. But to a rival team, that same innovation can look like a loophole. And this is the heart of the Red Bull versus Mercedes tension. Red Bull wants the new parts to be seen as genius. Mercedes may want them seen as questionable. The FIA has to decide where the line actually is. At Silverstone, that line becomes even more important because the track can make a hidden advantage obvious. A small aerodynamic detail can become huge through the fast corners. A shape that controls airflow more efficiently can help the car stay stable when the driver is fully committed. A part that looks almost invisible in the garage can give the driver confidence at high speed. And confidence at Silverstone is lap time. That is why Mercedes will be watching so closely. They are not only looking for raw speed, they are looking for the reason behind the speed. If Red Bull suddenly carries more momentum through the fastest sections, Mercedes will ask what changed. If the car looks calmer under load, they will ask why. If Verstappen can attack corners that looked more difficult before, they will want to know whether the two alleged secret parts are responsible. And this is where the leak becomes a weapon. Because a leak part is not just information, it changes behavior. Red Bull has to decide how aggressively to run the package. Mercedes has to decide how hard to push the FIA. The FIA has to decide whether the issue deserves attention before the weekend turns chaotic. Other teams start looking at the same area of the car, asking whether they missed something. Suddenly, the upgrade is not just on the Red Bull. It is inside everyone's head. That psychological pressure matters more than most fans realize. A Formula One weekend is already a battle against time. The team has to understand the tires, find the right setup, manage the driver's feedback, watch the weather, study long runs, prepare qualifying, build race strategy. Now add a legality question. Add a rival waiting to challenge you. Add the possibility that one wrong interpretation could pull the FIA into the garage conversation. That is how focus gets split. And when the front of the grid is tight, split focus can be expensive. This is why Mercedes may see the perfect moment to strike. If Red Bull's parts are truly powerful, challenging them early could stop the advantage from becoming normal. Because once a team runs a clever idea successfully, the conversation changes. At first, rivals ask if it is allowed. Then, very quickly, they ask how to copy it. Mercedes cannot allow that second question to arrive too late. If they believe Red Bull has stepped into a gray area, they have to force the first question immediately. Is it legal? That question alone can change the weekend. It can make Red Bull defend. It can make the FIA examine. It can make the paddock suspicious. And even before any decision is made, it can make every lap feel like evidence. If Red Bull is fast, the controversy grows. If Red Bull is slower than expected, people wonder whether the pressure affected the package. If Red Bull changes a car, everyone asks what they were trying to avoid. That is the trap. Red Bull may have brought performance, but Mercedes may have brought doubt. And doubt is one of the most powerful weapons in Formula One, because it does not need proof to create pressure. It only needs enough suspicion to make everyone look twice. Look twice at the car. Look twice at the rules. Look twice at the FIA. Look twice at every sector time. And at Silverstone, that becomes a very public problem. This is not a quiet test track. This is one of Formula One's biggest stages. The cameras are everywhere. The crowd is loud. The history is heavy. And every technical story becomes bigger when it lands at a race people already care about. That is why Red Bull's two alleged secret parts are not just a technical mystery. They are a political trigger. They can force Mercedes into action. They can force the FIA into judgment. They can force Red Bull to reveal just enough to defend itself, while trying not to give rivals a secret they are chasing. And that may be the cruelest part for Red Bull. To prove a part is legal, you may have to explain why it works. But the moment you explain why it works, the secret starts to leak even further. Other teams listen. Engineers decode every sentence. Rivals study every photograph. What began as a hidden advantage can become the next development race across the grid. So Red Bull has to protect two things at once: the legality of the parts and the mystery around them. That is not easy, especially with Mercedes applying pressure, especially with the FIA watching, especially at Silverstone, where the car itself will reveal whether the upgrade actually matters. Because the truth will not stay hidden for long. If those parts give Red Bull more stability through the fast corners, the lap time will show it. If they help the car become more efficient, the speed traps may hint at it. If they improve the way the car handles heavy cornering loads, Verstappen's confidence may reveal it before the team says a word. And if Mercedes sees that pattern, the protest story will not fade. It will grow. That is why this opening phase of the weekend is so dangerous. The cars have not even needed a dramatic on-track battle yet. The battle has already started in the spaces between the regulations, the garage walls, the camera lenses, and the rival teams watching every detail. Red Bull wants Silverstone to prove its upgrade direction is alive. Mercedes wants to make sure that direction is legal before it becomes unstoppable. The FIA wants control before suspicion becomes chaos. And the rest of the paddock wants to know whether these two alleged secret parts are the beginning of a Red Bull breakthrough or the beginning of a technical fight that could reshape the season. That is the first real layer of the story. Not speed. Not yet. Suspicion. Because in Formula One, suspicion is what arrives just before the truth becomes expensive. The next layer is where the story moves from suspicion to conflict. Because once Mercedes begins watching a Red Bull upgrade with this much attention, the argument is no longer only about the car. It becomes about control. Control of the rules. Control of the narrative. Control of the weekend before the stopwatch has the final word. And that is why the FIA's role becomes so important. The attached source points toward recent FIA tension around breaches, penalties, and decisions in the paddock. Mercedes and Audi were connected to Austrian Grand Prix curfew breach headlines, and other recent stories around penalties and FIA decisions were already circulating before the Silverstone controversy appeared. That matters because Formula One teams do not react inside a vacuum. They react inside an atmosphere. And right now, that atmosphere is sensitive. Every penalty matters. Every clarification matters. Every decision by the FIA becomes part of a bigger question. Are the rules being applied consistently? Are teams being treated equally? Is a clever interpretation being allowed? Or is it being challenged only when rivals make enough noise? That is where Mercedes can apply real pressure. Not by saying Red Bull is automatically guilty. That would be too simple. And the source does not prove that. The more powerful move is to force a question that the FIA cannot ignore. Show us why this is legal. That question is dangerous because it sounds calm, but it carries weight. It does not need shouting. It does not need drama. It simply places Red Bull's upgrade under a brighter light. And once a Formula One part is under that light, every angle becomes important. A floor detail that looked harmless becomes suspicious. A bodywork shape becomes a debate. A cooling exit becomes a possible performance trick. A tiny movement at speed becomes a legal argument. And because the source does not specify the two parts, the uncertainty spreads even further. That is the strange power of an incomplete leak. When the exact details are missing, the paddock starts filling the space with fear. Mercedes may be looking at one area. Other teams may suspect another. Fans may imagine something even more dramatic. And Red Bull has to sit in the middle of all of it, knowing that the more it says, the more it may reveal. That is a trap. Silence protects the secret, but it also feeds suspicion. Explanation reduces suspicion, but it can expose the thinking behind the design. And in Formula One, giving rivals a clue can be almost as painful as losing a protest. Because once the idea is understood, the advantage begins to shrink. Other teams start asking their own design departments the same question. Can we build something similar? Can we interpret the rule the same way? Can we force the FIA to clarify it before Red Bull pulls too far ahead? This is how a private upgrade becomes a public arms race. And Mercedes knows that better than almost anyone. They understand that a technical advantage is most powerful when it is accepted quickly. If Red Bull runs apart, gains performance, and survives scrutiny, then the idea becomes harder to attack later. It starts to feel normal. It starts to feel like part of the game. That is why timing is everything. Challenge early, and you may stop the advantage before it becomes established. Wait too long, and you may be forced to copy the very idea you questioned. So if Mercedes is already preparing pressure around these alleged secret parts, the strategy is obvious. Do not let Red Bull normalize the upgrade. Do not let the story become only about lap time. Force the conversation back to legality before the performance speaks too loudly. And this is where Red Bull faces a very delicate decision. If they run the parts aggressively and the car is fast, Mercedes will have more reason to push. If they hesitate, they risk losing the performance they came to Silverstone to find. If they modify the package, the paddock will ask whether the protest threat worked. If they defend the parts publicly, they may reveal just enough for rivals to learn. Every path has a cost. That is what makes this conflict so dangerous. It is not like a normal setup choice, where a team chooses between more downforce or more straight-line speed. This is a choice between performance, secrecy, and scrutiny. And those three things rarely sit comfortably together. Performance wants to be used. Secrecy wants to stay hidden. Scrutiny wants to expose everything. At Silverstone, all three are colliding at once. And Verstappen, again, becomes a person who can make the story explode. Because if Red Bull sends him out with the alleged parts and he immediately looks comfortable, the reaction will be instant. Mercedes will see it. The FIA will hear about it. Other teams will start comparing. The cameras will search for the detail. The timing screens will become evidence. Every tenth of a second will feel like part of a legal case. That is the madness of Formula One at the top level. The lap time is never just lap time. It is proof. Proof that the concept works. Proof that rivals miss something. Proof that the rules may have a gap. Or proof that the entire controversy was built on fear. And fear is a huge part of this. Mercedes may not only be reacting to what Red Bull has built, they may be reacting to what Red Bull could become again if the upgrade works. That is the deeper emotional pressure. Because Red Bull finding performance at Silverstone would not just affect one weekend. It could restore belief. It could tell Verstappen that the development direction is alive. It could tell rivals that Red Bull has found another path through the regulations. It could turn one leak into the first sign of a bigger comeback. And Mercedes cannot ignore that possibility. Not at Silverstone. Not with the FIA already under pressure to be clear. Not when two alleged secret parts could become the difference between chasing Red Bull and containing them. But here is the twist. A protest can also backfire. If Mercedes pushes too hard and the FIA confirms the parts are legal, Red Bull gains more than permission.